This is the 2021 Giant Revolt Advance 3. In the Revolt lineup for 2021 are 8 different models, and this is the first of the carbon fiber Revolts. When you hear advanced in any of the Giant's naming, that means carbon fiber. So, I'm going to show you some of the details of this bike, talk about the specs, and a little bit about what you might or might not like about it. Let's go. So I'm going to be starting this video by showing you some specifications on the bike. I'm going to follow that up with a little bit of a GRX 400 explanation, which is the level of drivetrain on this guy, because a lot of people aren't very familiar with Shimano's gravel group set. I'll then go into a little bit of a discussion about 1x versus 2x drivetrains on a gravel bike. And to finish it off, we'll just have a quick talk about geometry on a gravel bike. So now we can get going. So shifting, braking, and derailleur duties are all taken care of with the Shimano 400 GRX group set on here. This is roughly the equivalent of a Tiagra group set if you're used to the road world of Shimano group sets. We have a 10-speed 1134 cassette on here. We have an FSA Omega 4832 crank set on there. Tires are Giant's 38C cross-cut AT1, and these are setup tubeless. We have a pretty generously wide rim on here, so this frame and drivetrain can allow up to a 45C tire on there, and these wide rims are going to basically give you the best chance of getting some good performance out of tires if you ever choose to go larger with tires. Water bottle mounts, seat tube, down tube, really thin seat stays on this guy. That little Giant plug there is basically hiding where pannier and full wrap fender mounts would be. That is also an insert to allow for putting some fenders on here. We have a defuse seat post, so I showed you how slender those seat stays are. That's all to get a little bit of extra vertical compliance in the back of the frame. This defuse seat post, which basically means that the back of the post is kind of flat in profile, that's also there to give us a little bit of extra compliance. This new Giant Approach saddle is a really nice flexible saddle, so it's not heavily padded, but it does have some extra flex that's going to give you some more comfort on there. A nice detail on here is the way Giant has done their seat post clamp, so a hidden wedge system inside the frame there with a little rubber cover. Really nice chainstay protection, so rubberized on top here, and that wraps around to the bottom. So even though this derailleur has a clutch on there, which helps to minimize the amount the chain is going to rattle around, we also are going to need that if we're riding through bumpier terrain. On the forks, we have a lowrider threaded mount. We also have a fender mount. Handlebars on here are also from the defuse family, so like that seat post, we've actually got a flat section to the handlebars, which helps us to get a little bit more compliance to the bars as you're rolling over lumpy terrain. There's those GRX brakes that come on this guy. One of the nice features on there is those fins that you're seeing. Those are finned brake pads, so that's going to help you to not get brake fade. We have a 160mm brake rotor. A really nice detail on this guy is under the down tube there is a good rubberized protection down here. So that is going to help to protect. If you're riding on gravel, you're going to be spitting up gravel at some point. We have an interesting way of doing the quick release on here. So this is a 142 by 12 through axle rear end. It's a through axle on the fork as well. The rear, it's not really a quick release lever, but this lever to tighten it, that sort of has a lot of friction holding it in place there, but that can be pulled out, and then that's going to mean that you can come to the front of your bike here and use that to take your front wheel off. So just a simple way that you are going to have your tool with you all the time. And it also means that depending on what fashion sense you follow, you can have your lever facing whichever direction you want when that is finished being closed. So those are the quick details of what's happening on this bike. So now going into the Shimano GRX 400 Groupset. So this is a relatively new thing that a lot of people, if you've been following along with road bike group sets over the year, you know your Tiagra 105 Ultegra sort of hierarchy of stuff. GRX is basically a separate gravel group set. There is 400, which is what we're looking at, 600 and 800. The 400 series is 10 speed, roughly the equivalent of the Tiagra level in the road group. So you know that it's sort of that where price point and performance start to meet. One of the things that you'll notice on here is on a GRX derailleur is we have this thing that's called a clutch. That is the clutch turned off right now. So you basically have a really strong spring system inside the knuckle on your derailleur. They give you the option to turn this off so that if you get a flat, you're not going to be battling a whole bunch of extra resistance in there. But when that's turned on, as you're going over bumps, you have a very pronounced spring in your derailleur, and that is going to help to control your chain from bouncing around too much. We also have this shadow style setup here. So instead of having, usually there'd be like a B spring sticking out. This is to keep things a little bit more low profile, so knowing that a lot of people when they hear gravel, what they're thinking is single track. On the front derailleur, one of the things that they've done there, this is very similar to all the other sort of road group set front derailleurs, but they have changed the shape of the cage, and that is to allow for wider tires without having interference between your tire and the inside of the cage down there. So both this front derailleur and the Giant frame are designed to go up to a 45C tire. At the moment, stock tire 38C, but you can go up to 45C. So that is sort of on the derailleur end of things. When you get to the shifter end of things, we have a really nice textured hood here and a shape that's trying to help you to feel really, really confident that your hands aren't going to slip off your hoods. So the levers themselves are designed knowing that this is probably going to be on some handlebars with a bit more flair, and you've got a shape that is going to support your hand just a little bit better, it seems. Speaking of that flair, you do have just a little bit of extra flair compared to sort of a vertical bar on a standard road group set. And then even the shaping of the levers themselves is gives a really nice feel under your fingers. So those are the sort of special things that happened on the GRX group set then that makes it more roads or more gravel specific. So 1x or 2x, what is the right way to set up a gravel bike? Well, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do this. You are going to have a few different arguments, I think, to go either way. I imagine what Giant is thinking by going with these 2x group sets is that they're catering to a lot of the road crowd where they're looking for smaller steps between their gears and wanting to basically monitor their cadence and keep their cadence in the sweet spot. So they have gone with the 2x system to try and keep those steps between the gears smaller while having roughly the same sort of gear range as a lot of the modern 1x systems. So that, I would say, is the big argument for going 2x, is if you really care about keeping your 85 RPM or whatever your magic number might be for cadence. In contradiction, I would say the beauty of the 1x system is silence and simplicity. So that's for you to decide. Do you care about cadence? Do you care about silence? The question we quite often find ourselves answering from customers is, what is the difference between a gravel bike and a cyclocross bike? While gravel bikes basically draw their roots from cyclocross, I would say, they do have some differences, and they are becoming more pronounced these days as bike companies are able to make their cyclocross bikes even more cyclocross race specific and their gravel bikes even more gravel specific. So those differences largely come down to the fact that a cyclocross bike is designed for a cyclocross race course, which is often going to be technical and slower speed, compared to on a gravel bike, you're typically looking at doing gravel or single track, but doing it at a pretty good clip. And so you're looking for stability as opposed to the cyclocross bike looking for something that can really handle the tight bends in a race course. So on a gravel bike, they slacken out the head tube and they drop the bottom bracket. I would say those are the two most pronounced geometry changes when we look at gravel compared to cyclocross. You may also see a little bit of a taller stack, so a little bit of a taller handlebar on a gravel bike. Once again, because you're trying to get a little bit of extra comfort over long miles, as opposed to doing a 1 hour race or something like that in the case of cyclocross. So those are your big features. Slackened head tube, lower bottom bracket, room for bigger tires. I almost forgot to mention that. So on this particular bike, we're able to go up to a 45C tire. In cyclocross world, you're pretty much limited. At a certain level in cyclocross racing, you actually can't have a bigger tire than a 32 or 33C tire, where that just isn't going to be enough for a lot of gravel use. So ability to take big tires and to ride fast on bumpy terrain, that pretty much sums up your gravel bike and what it has to do for you. So I'm curious, guys, is this useful information for you? If you were shopping for a new Giant Revolt, would this help you to sort of figure out if this is the right bike for you, or if the components are the level that you're interested in? We're trying to make these videos as useful as possible for you, whether you're a potential customer for us or just trying to make an informed decision anywhere else in the world. What more information do you want? Are you interested in subscribing to see basically every bike that we're going to carry in inventory? You can see a little bit of a story about it. We're trying to make these things useful and contribute to the bicycle riding world. So I'm Graham. This is Bike Bros. We love talking about bikes. We love putting people on the bikes that's going to put a biggest smile on their face. Give us a subscribe, give us a like. Let me know what else are you looking for that I can do in a store when it's winter outside to help you to sort of know as much as you need to make an informed decision. Thanks so much. Ciao.